संसारदावा नललीढलोका त्रणाय कारुण्यघनघना त्वम् प्राप्तस्य कल्याण गुणार्णवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् महाप्रभु कीर्तन नित्र गीता वादित्र माध्यान मनसुरसेना रोमाञ्चकाम्पा श्रुतरङ्गबाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाना शृङ्गारतान्मन्दिरमर्जनादो युक्तश्च भक्तांश्च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसाद स्वादन तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घम् कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्नाम् प्रतिक्षणा स्वाधनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् निकुञ्जयोनुरतिकेलिसीधै यायलिभिर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीया तत्रातिदाक्षात् अतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव शाब्दे किन्तु प्रभुर्यप्येव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado Yasya prasada nagati kutopi Dhyayanstu vamstasya yashastri sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam 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 Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Shri Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Sudarshana. Jaya Sitaram 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 Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha. Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Krimi se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Shri Marpa Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Shri Ayodhya Dham ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Yamuna Mai ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glory to assembled devotees, all glory to assembled devotees, all glory to assembled devotees, all glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glory to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Pralada lada daine. Pralada lada daine. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Shilatamkanakalaye. Jaya Shilatamkanakalaye. Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha. Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha. Yato
सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः
वृन्दाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय
वृन्दाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्तिपदे देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः
वृन्दाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय
वृन्दाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्तिपदे देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय।
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Radha Krishna Seva Pavo E Abhilashi Radha Krishna Seva Pavo E Abhilashi जे तुम्हारा शरण लोय तारा वांछा पूर्ण होय कृपा करी करो तारे वृंदावनवासी मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंजरियो वास नयने हरि बोसदा युगल रूप राशि निवेदनदारो सखीरनुगत करो सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी दीना कृष्ण दास को ये न मोरा होय श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेम सदा नगासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेम सदा नवासी Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
Thus within my vision shows behold the beautiful paths of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me follow a careful dance of Vraja. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen lowly servant of Krishna prays. May I always swim in the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. Tulasi Maharani ki. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting holy names that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme devotees who have dedicated their lives for the propagation of the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Brahma to be equal to independent name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or to pursue the Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activity in the strength of chanting holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas as fruited activities, karma, kanda. 9. To instruct a faithless person about the glory of the holy name. 10. To not complete faith in the chanting holy names, and to maintain material attachments in understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer most humble obeisances on all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just as eye trees who can facilitate everyone, and they have full compassion for fallen conditioned souls. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Jeto Darpana Marjanam Pavamahadavakni Nirvapanam Shriya Gairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Padivardanam Pratipadam Purnamida Sadhanam Sarvatmasnapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Eta Dishi Tava Kripa Bhagavam Mamapi Durudavami Disham Yaha Janina Nurakaha Trinatapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sada Harihi Na Thanam Na Chanam Na Sundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Jammani Jammanishware Bhavata Bhaktir Haituki Tvai Ai Nanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Sthitaturi Sadvesham Vichintaya Nayanam Karadashuru Daraya Vadanam Katkata Rudaya Gira Pulakai Nichitam Vapur Kada Tava Nama Karhane Bhavishati Yuga itam nimishena chakshusha pravisha itam shunya itam jagat sarvam govinda virahe name ashri shava padradam pinnashtumam adarshanam marmhatam karotuva yatha tatha va vidathatu lampato matprana nathastu se eva na paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which is cleansed the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtana movement is the prime benediction for humanity in the large, because it spreads a rays and benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone grant all benediction human beings. And thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, all the kindness in us easily approach you by holy names. But I am so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking himself Lord and his joy in the street. One should be more tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to commit wealth, devotional service, birth after birth. O Samarjananda, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow I fall into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me among the Adam to your lotus feet. O my Lord, when my eyes be decorative tears, love flowing constantly when I chant the holy name. When will my voice choke up, or the hair of my body stand and a recitation of your name. O Govinda, feeling of separation and constant moment to be like a great millennium. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Shri Guru Pranam Priya Mangacharan Priya. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Soyam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Shakham Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatya Desha Tarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitaya Kripaptaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhuryo Jala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktita Shri Gaura Karna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Pasiddhanta Dvanta Harine Namo Gaurakishoraya Sashat Vairagya Mutaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padam Bhajate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namini Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gauravir Bhava Bhumistvam Nirdeshta Sajanapriya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bhavacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinapanto Jakapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Chaitam Surato Pangor Mamamanda Matirgati Masarvasva Padam Boju Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vindaranya Kalpaju Madaha Shimadra Nagara Singhasana So Shimadradha Shira Govinda Devo Prishtari Seva Manoswarami Shiman Rasaram Bivam Sivata Tatastita Karsham Venu Sanerko Pir Gopinatha Shri Yesunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Sadmasakalpa Riksha Laksha Vridesa Surabhira Vipalyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kvanandam Ravinda Dalaitaksham Bharhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandam Yes, say so. Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alo Lachandra Gala Sadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Punaya Keli Kalavilasam Shamam Chibanga Lalita Nita Prakasam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vritti Pasyanti Pantika Yanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadvijvala Vigrahasya Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Ashrutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayuvanam Cha Pede Sadurlabam Matma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavasara Sampragam Yova Yoratapi Manaso Manipungamana Sobhyastiyat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tatve Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekop Yasora Chaitam Jagadanda Kotim Yas Chakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Dio Manajastatayiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayarabusa Suktarya Meva Nikama Pratitastuvanti Govindo Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Patibhavita Bhistavir Evani Chirupataya Kalabi Goloka Evani Visata Kilatma Bhuto Govindo Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksadeva Hidayesa Vilokayanti Yam Sham Sundaramachinta Ganaswarupam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Mursti Sukala Nimenatistan Nanavatara Makarod Bhuvane Sakintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has an eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all, he has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock feather, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers beautified with the moon locket, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Sham Sundar is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universe as both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure, unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha. And yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. I worship the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confidants, Shakis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shama Sundara, Krishna himself, with inconceivable and innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their hearts of hearts with the eye of devotion, tinged with the salve of love. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Nishinga, Vamana, etc., as his subjective portions. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Brahma Samhita ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Haribol, Srimad Bhagavad Gita Granth Raj ki jai. We are studying now the 15th chapter and verse number, verse number 4, 5, yeah. Uh, verse number 5. Nirmama moha jita sangadosa. Adhyatma nitya vinivritta kama. Dvandera vimukta sukhadukkha samgaya. Gajantyam uta padam avyayam tat. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. Now, this is a very, very important verse if you want to understand how we get entangled in the material world and how we can become liberated from it. So, this is how powerful one verse is. It has the whole program of how we get entangled, how we become liberated. If you understand this one verse, you'll be able to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. And you'll be able to avoid all the pitfalls and falsity that's in this world. Okay, so he begins by saying, the surrendering process is described here very nicely. Well, that's saranam, surrendering to the Lord. So this is giving a lot of information of how to actually surrender to the Lord. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride. Now notice in the translation it says, those who are free from false prestige. Well, false prestige means you have an overinflated evaluation of who you are. Right? It's like a balloon that gets overinflated and bursts like that. So this is the false ego. So it says, not to be deluded by pride. That's what it means when it says false prestige. Because the conditioned soul is puffed up. Yeah, so unnecessarily inflated with nonsense, right? Is puffed up. Thinking himself the Lord of material nature, it is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what does it mean, the Lord of material nature? Well, people like Elon Musk, people like Mr. Bezos, people like any of these CEOs, Larry Ellison, the other Larrys, and the CEO of Microsoft, or the main shareholder of Microsoft, Bill Gates. They all have the same idea that they are controllers, and they're deluded by pride, and they're all puffed up, thinking themselves the Lord of material nature, or at least some part of material nature. It is very difficult for such a person to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There it is. So it's not surprising that such people think that, but usually they don't accept that there is a God. If they do accept there is a God, they think he's just a little better than themselves, but if they keep making more money and having more land and more assets, they'll be up there also. And they're investing big time in how to become immortal in the body. which is, of course, impossible. But that's what they're trying to do because they're attached to the body. Okay. So, thinking himself the Lord of material nature, it is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, and even in the Bible, in the New Testament, there's a story of the very rich man who approaches Jesus Christ and says, "How can I enter into the kingdom of God?" And Jesus Christ tells him, "Okay, well, it's not that difficult. Go back home and give away all your wealth, and then come back." So that was like a shock to that very rich man. So he never made it back because he was so attached to all that money he had, which is not much, actually. But anyway, he thought it was. And then, so he never made it back to Jesus. He never made it back to the spiritual world. And then Jesus says, "Verily I say, it's easier to put an elephant through the hole of a needle than for a rich man to go back to Godhead." There you go. So it's in Christianity also that the love of money is the root of all evil. Not that money is the root of all evil. The love of money. So therefore you see these billionaires, they don't stop trying to make money right up till the moment of death. Right? I mean, let's say somebody has $4 billion. You think he can spend all that money in a lifetime? No. But they keep investing it and trying to make more money and more money and more money. And they never give up the attachment. And therefore, they die attached. And then they have to take birth again. And no guarantee what the next birth is. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not Lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. So that's why it's important to come regularly every day to class and hear about Krishna, hear about the false ego, hear about the real ego, hear about what is devotional service, hear about what is our relationship with Krishna. All these things are important if we want to become free of all these false ideas that keep us entangled in the material world. So it says, one should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not Lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. When one is freed from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. So that's a big statement. Delusion caused by pride. So, should we be proud of something? If we follow the Chaitanya Charitamrita, or if we follow the Siksastakam, it says, Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundarim, Kavitam Ba, Jagadishikamaye, Mama Janmani, Janmanishware, Bhavatad Bhakti Rahaitukhi Tvai. So, it says that I'm not interested in any amount of money, I'm not interested in any number of followers, I'm not interested in beautiful women or handsome men, and I'm not interested in becoming liberated from the cycle of birth and death. I'm only interested in engaging in devotional service for the Lord. So, there it is. One should not be attached to any of these material things, but one should build up their attachment to Krishna and engage in Krishna's service and remain humble and meek. The more you become advanced spiritually, the more humble you become, the more gentle you become, the more determined you are to strictly follow the rules and regulations, and the more you're interested in hearing and chanting about Krishna. So that is a symptom of a liberated person. So it says, one should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not Lord of the material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. So, by the time someone graduates high school, usually they're convinced of the material conception of life, and they're not so interested in learning about Krishna. Even Prabhupada said when he went to college, his his attachment that he learned in his younger years, his attachment to Krishna was somewhat loosened. But then, when he met his spiritual master, it reignited his fervor to become and to maintain himself as a devotee of the Lord and be engaged in devotional service. So this is the effect of modern education, whether it was 100 years ago when Prabhupada went to school or today. It's the same thing. Even in the religious schools, they teach you. They don't really teach Chinadapi Suni Chena Tarorapi Sistana Manina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadari. One should be more tolerant. One should be more humble than a straw in the street, more tolerant than a tree, ready to offer all respect to others, even those who don't respect you. In such state of mind, one can become Sada Hari, a person who's constantly chanting Hare Krishna and meditating on Krishna. So that should be the goal of our life, not meditating on how to make more money, meditating on sense gratification, meditating on how I can be a controller and control things and other people and so forth. So the devotee becomes more and more humble, and the materialist becomes more and more puffed up with false pride and illusion. So when there's false pride, it's already in an illusory state. In fact, there's this ancient statement, the same statement is there in the Vedas, but ancient Greek statement, Greek philosophy, which says, who the gods want to destroy, first they make him proud. So that pride, false pride, if you're going to be proud of something, you should be proud of Srila Prabhupada and all his achievements, and proud of Krishna and his transcendental pastimes. Not proud of because I did this or I did that. Whenever someone is speaking always about I. Whenever Barack Obama gave a speech, he always said, well, I did this and I did that and I. He kept saying I, talking about himself. He's giving a, maybe he's supposed to be speaking about some other politician. He ends up talking about himself the whole time. So that's a sign of being puffed up, false pride. Can't stop speaking about himself and all the achievements he'd made. If you listen to these politicians' speeches, they're always telling you about, like listen to Joe Biden, he's always talking about, well, I did this and I did that, and I'm going to do this, and just trust me, and I will do this, and I will do that. They're talking about themselves all the time, all the things they're going to do or they're planning on doing. And most of the time, they don't actually accomplish all those things. They say they are. So, but the devotee is not interested in I. The devotee is interested in Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. That's the difference. Their main topic is glorifying Krishna, not glorifying their achievements. And what kind of achievements are there anyway? They're going to lose everything at the moment of death. So they're not really achievements. They're just temporary things. So, therefore, it says here, one should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not the Lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. So this is what we have to teach our children. This is what we have to be convinced of ourselves. When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. Like, I'll give you another example. There's a big problem about kids being bullied in school by other kids. In fact, one boy just recently committed suicide. He looked like a very, a normal kid. One day he came home from school and he committed suicide when he was only like 13 years old. And they were trying to figure out why would he do such a thing. He looked like he was just normal. He was, but he was being bullied all the time in school. So there's bullying. It can be on the internet. It can be, in school. Oftentimes, young kids become so frustrated by bullying or by people speaking meanly to them that they commit suicide nowadays. Look it up. Look it up on the internet. 13-year-old boy bullied in school commits suicide. Young girl, always on Instagram, was rejected by a person speaking to her, and she committed suicide or canceled. Okay, you have it? Can you get your microphone? It's not on. The microphone is not on.
13-year-old Indiana boy dies by suicide. Family says he was bullied.
There you go. Did you find the
This
girl?
is March 10th, 2023.
Huh?
March 10th, 2023.
Yeah, it was very recent. There was this young girl. This is like I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago. The mother of her friend, who was a neighbor, another girl who was in their class, but the mother was jealous of the neighbor's girl. So she pretended to be a young girl herself on her social media, and they were texting each other back and forth for I don't know, a couple months, and this girl became very attached to the false friend, who was actually the mother of the next door neighbor and her friend, and the mother purposely rejected her. What do you call that when they cut you off as a friend? And the girl committed suicide. She was so devastated. After that lady purposely pretended to be a young girl like her, same age as herself, and a very, affectionate friend, texting back and forth every day. And then she rejected the young girl, and the girl committed suicide. And then they were studying, when the police were studying her emails, and then they tracked that the person that was talking to her was actually the neighbor mother of her school friend. And the lady purposely did that to ruin the child's life. Do you see that? Do you see that? It happened about 2-3 years ago. So here we see a lot of really mean things happening on the internet. I mean, really bad things. And it causes havoc in the lives of young kids who are not mature enough to deal with such situations. Right? Yeah, like if they become very attracted to someone, and all of a sudden that person rejects them, it's like devastating for them. You found anything?
There is a girl by name Laura Barnes, and she was a high school junior who died by suicide after, I think this one probably an embarrassing video posted online by her friends. But it started with Unfriended. There's a movie called Unfriended. So apparently it's based on real story, how friends unfriended, and then that caused her to commit
suicide. Yeah, that's not the one I'm talking about, but it's the same thing. So you see, the social media can be very dangerous for young kids because you come in contact with people all over the world, and some of those people are really nasty people, and they like to play tricks, and they like to ruin young kids' lives. Okay, so so it says, one should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not Lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. Well, the whole purpose of modern education is to make kids proud. Like the high five. The high five is all about congratulating people for doing basically nothing. But they feel as if, they build up pride by getting the high five. Someone says, "Oh, wonderful!" High five, boom, like that. So it builds up the so-called self-esteem. Like someone is able to put the ball through the hoop. So everyone, hugs them and say, "Oh, you're a hero. You're wonderful. You're so good." People become very proud of what you would call very mediocre achievements. And so it builds up their self-esteem, their pride, false ego, and so forth. And it just gets worse and worse as they get older and older. When one is freed from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. Now, there's illusion and there's delusion. Is there a difference between the two words? Yes, there is. Why don't you look it up now? Illusion, I-L-L-U-S-I-O-N, and delusion, D-E-L-U-S-I-O-N. So illusion is to make a mistake of perception or hearing and then think that the mistake is correct. Now you're in illusion. Yeah? Oh, well, then it's I stink if you're just guessing. Either you know or you don't know. No. You're off the subject.
Maharaj, it says, characterized by or holding false beliefs or judgments about external reality that are held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary.
No, wait a minute.
There's
Read it again slowly.
Characterized by or holding false beliefs or judgments about external reality that are held despite
That are what?
held
Yes.
despite incontrovertible evidence to the incontrovertible evidence to the contrary, typically
So
as
in other words, incontrovertible means you can't deny it. It's absolutely fact. But still you deny it. Go ahead.
Evidence to the contrary, typically
Mental belief in something that's not true and was never true. That's an illusion. Right?
Just to add to that, here is another explanation of that. Illusion is something that you and everyone know is just an illusion and not true. For example, you and the magician know that the tricks are illusion.
That what?
The magician, as well as watching it, tricks are an illusion. So that means it may not seem real, but they still know that it is illusion. On the other hand,
not everybody thinks it's an illusion. Young kids think that person got cut in half.
Yeah, then that's when they get into the delusion. So in delusion, people think that what they see or hear is real, despite someone contradicting it.
Okay, but actually, yes, but no. The difference between illusion and delusion is you believe something that's not true to be true. That's an illusion. When you act on it, that's delusional. Right?
It's a false So here, Maharaj, one difference I saw. So illusion is a misleading perception. Okay, and
Delusion.
delusion is a false belief that is maintained even if it is contradicted.
Okay.
So they're saying that it's a false belief.
Even if it's contradicted.
Even if it is contradicted, people believe that this is what it
Okay,
is.
then delusional is when you act on that false belief.
You just believe that illusion
Yeah.
is the truth.
Truth, that is delusion.
Mhm. Okay. So, but you're in a delusional state when you're acting on it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for example, you think the world is going to end in 2019. So therefore, you sell your house, you max out your credit cards, and you go buy a tent and live on a mountain waiting for the world to end. Of course, it doesn't end. But look what you did. You maxed out your credit cards. You left your house. You're living in the wilderness in a tent, and nothing happened. Right? So it's a delusional state of mind, and you acted on it, which means you're an idiot. And the whole thing is false, and you refuse to get any good advice. Okay, so one who is always expecting some honor in this material world, for one who is always expecting some honor in this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. Oh, now it's getting real specific, and it's showing how dangerous this false ego is. For one who is always expecting some honor in this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. Pride is due to illusion. For although one comes here, stays for a brief time, and then goes away, he has the foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. He thus makes all things complicated, and he is always in trouble. Yeah. So, one time, this devotee told me, oh, the next time Gurudev comes, I'm going to complain about this person who's a nonsense. So I said to this person, I said, what did you promise at the moment of initiation? And they said, oh, I'm going to chant Hare Krishna. I'm going to follow the four regulative principles. I said, right. Did you say that I'm going to complain about this person to Gurudev? Was that one of the things you promised? No. Then therefore, just focus on following what you promised and stop thinking about complaining about this person or that person, because it's only going to make things complicated. And then this person was like, well, this person is getting away with this and getting away with that. I said, okay, if you think like that, you just tell the temple president that's his job to take care of the complaints, not your job. Your job is to follow the four regulative principles and chant Hare Krishna every day very nicely. So just focus on what you promised at the initiation, and you leave that other task to someone who has that responsibility, like the president of the temple, right? So sometimes people get so confused, they think, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. What we have to do is strictly follow what we promised at initiation. That's what we have to do. That's our real, that's the real area where we should be focused on. Because if we do that, follow the regulative principles very strictly, and chant very nicely, minimum 16 rounds, you'll make tangible spiritual progress. And of course, come to class every day and eat only prasadam and come with sankirtan and preach and worship the deities. These are the things that we should focus on, not complaining about this person or that person. If you see something wrong, you just tell the people that are in charge. That's their responsibility. It's to correct those things. It's not our responsibility to correct people. Well, you can correct your own child, but as far as other people in the temple go, some people have that responsibility, like the temple president or the temple commander and those things. Okay. So then, pride is due to illusion. For although one comes here, stays for a brief time, and then goes away, he has the foolish notion that he is Lord of the world. He thus makes all things complicated, and he is always in trouble. So that's a big point. He thus makes all things complicated, and he's always in trouble. Do you know people like that who make things very complicated?
Lot of people.
Huh?
Almost all of us.
The more we make things simple, the better. So Lord Chaitanya made everything simple. Just chant Hare Krishna. Go on Sankirtan. Take prasadam to your full satisfaction. Preach. Worship the deity. And also always be humble and meek. So he made it real simple. It's not complicated. Anybody can do those things, right? One time, this member of the Arya Samaj, I call him the Arya Hodgepodge, and he came to the temple. This is a long time ago when I was the pujari. I was the pujari, the temple president, the guy who cleans the floor, everything. And he saw me do arti, and then I served him some prasadam, and he said, "Oh, what you're doing is pretty good," he said, "but it's not correct." I said, "What?" He said, "No, your guru has not taught you properly." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes. You have to study Sanskrit, and then you have to memorize the alphabet, and then learn how to understand the words in context, and then pronunciation, this thing." Went through a whole list of things you have to do. And he said, "So your guru didn't teach you. And every day you have to do Agnihotram, morning and evening." I said, "Well, we do it every once in a while for initiations and things." They said, No. And this deity worship is not necessary. So I listened to him, but he was basically denying everything Prabhupada taught us. So here we see, and so they don't believe in deity worship, the Arya Hodgepodges, and they base everything on the false interpretation of the Vedas, and so forth. And he said also, you shouldn't read the Vedas; you should hear them. So he, had all these things that, for me, would be impossible to do, right? So what have they done? They've made everything complicated, whereas Lord Chaitanya made everything simple. You say everybody can do it. A little kid can do it. A person on their dying bed can do it. But these people make it all very complicated. So that's a sign that they are an illusion. So people are considering the land, the earth, to belong to human society. And they have divided the land under the false impression that they are the proprietors. One has to get out of this false notion that human society is the proprietor of this world. When one is freed from such a false notion, he becomes free from all the false associations caused by familial, social, and national affections. These faulty associations bind one to this material world. After this stage, one has to develop spiritual knowledge. One has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what is actually not his own. And when one has, what is our own? The only thing that we own is a limited free will. Either we accept Krishna or we don't accept Krishna. That's something we own. Everything else belongs to Krishna. Right? So, if we make the right decision and accept Krishna, then we can go back to Godhead. If we make the wrong decision and ignore Krishna, then we stay in the material world. So therefore, the only thing we really own is that decision, either accepting or rejecting Krishna. So if we accept Krishna every day, every minute, then we're Krishna conscious. And if we sometimes accept Krishna and sometimes don't accept Krishna, then we stay in the material world. Or if we never accept Krishna, we stay in the material world. So, the faulty association bind one to this material world. After this stage, one has to develop spiritual knowledge. One has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what is actually not his own. And when one has an understanding of things as they are, he becomes free from all dual conceptions such as happiness and distress, pleasure and pain. He becomes full in knowledge. Then it is possible for him to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we see the surrender to Krishna is not an easy thing for people that have false conceptions. Therefore, going to a school where they're going to teach you usually 98% false things, very dangerous. That can influence you the rest of your life. And it can stop you from making any tangible spiritual advancement. See? So we have to be very, very careful what we hear. And so what should we hear? We should hear Bhagavad Gita every day. Srimad Bhagavatam every day. That's what we should focus on. Not these other subjects that deny the existence of God, deny the importance of surrender to the personality, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Who wants to surrender? Do you think anybody that has a false ego wants to surrender to God? No way. They don't want to surrender. They want everyone to surrender to them. See? So, how can you teach a person to surrender to Krishna? Well, you have to hear about Arjuna. He surrendered to Krishna. And look what happened. He became tremendously successful, even though he was faced with insurmountable challenges. He was destined to lose the battle of Kurukshetra. You know, they were vastly outnumbered by the army of Duryodhana. But they came out completely successful. So, if you want success in life, then you have to go the opposite way of the karmis. The karmis building up their false ego, building up false associations, building up false concepts. The devotee, on the other hand, becomes more and more humble, more and more gentle, more and more dedicated to only being engaged in devotional service. So there's two opposite things going on. One is inflating the false ego, the other is deflating it and becoming very humble and meek. So that doesn't mean you're weak. Meek does not mean weak. Meek means that you're very humble and gentle, but in certain circumstances you can be like a lion. Just like Nrsimhadev, he appears because Hiranyakashipu is trying to torture his son, who's a pure devotee. So we're not cowards. We're not afraid of being, like Jatayu. He was blind, he was old, but he ran after Ravana, challenged him, and fought with him. And although he was mortally wounded, his death was glorious because he died in the arms of Lord Ramachandra. So Prabhupada says in purport about Jatayu, he said, we should all be like Jatayu, ready to die to save Sita Devi. So we're not supposed to be cowards, but we're supposed to be completely tolerant of people that insult us personally. But if they insult Krishna or Prabhupada, then we should be like a lion or a tiger. So all these things we have to learn gradually. But the main thing is our general, lifestyle is being humble and meek. The more we make spiritual advancement, the more humble we become, the more tolerant we become, the more understanding we become. And so therefore it says here, one has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what is actually not his own. What time is it? Okay. And when one has an understanding of things as they are, he becomes free from all dual conceptions, such as happiness and distress, pleasure and pain. So you learn to tolerate these things because you know they're all temporary, even the pain. He becomes full in knowledge. Then it is possible for him to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this saranam, this surrender to Krishna. So there's 6 aspects of it. To accept everything favorable, reject everything unfavorable, consider Krishna your only protector, and to consider number 4, to consider Krishna as your only maintainer. Right? You're not dependent on anyone else. You know that Krishna will always help you. He's always there. And then number 5, to not to have any other desire other than devotional service, and to be engaged always in the service of Krishna. And number 6, to be humble and meek in the execution of devotional service. So these are 6 symptoms of surrender to the Lord. So are we teaching our children to surrender to Krishna? We should ask that question. What does it mean to surrender to Krishna? It means the more you're engaged in devotional service, the more you're surrendered to the Lord. So Prabhupada said, the only question you should have is, Gurudev, how can I serve you? So that was Prabhupada's point, that if you have any question, it should be, how can I serve Guru and Krishna? Not, how can I be served by Guru and Krishna, but how I can serve Guru and Krishna. Okay, so what I would suggest that you do is, for tomorrow, make an outline of all the major points in this short purport, because this is very important verse. It's how to control the false ego and purify it. And what are the problems we have to overcome, and what we should actually focus our attention on in this lifetime. Okay, any questions? Okay.
What problems we have to overcome,
and how we can surrender completely to the Lord. So this verse explains the problems and the solutions. Go ahead. Give the microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare
While you were explaining about illusion, delusion, and Arya Samaj, I just wanted this clarification. Complicating the process of Vedas is illusion.
What?
Complicating the process of understanding the Vedas, is it illusion, or because delusion is acting upon it?
Well, okay. In the dictionary it says delusion is even after you get the information that what you believe is wrong, you still believe it. And then you'll act on it.
Okay.
And then you're in a delusional state when you start acting on it. Even after it was proven to you that it was wrong. Like, for example, someone says, you're not this body. He says, I don't believe that. And then they say, but you should only use the body in Krishna's service. So, what? I'm not going to use it in Krishna's service. I'm going to use it in my service. So that's a person who's delusional.
Delusion, okay.
Any other questions? So, what is our position? Our position is either we accept Krishna or we don't accept Krishna. So if we don't accept Krishna, we are in an illusion. And even though we might hear the proof, as we're hearing every day, of surrendering to Krishna, we don't accept it. And therefore, we ruin our chance to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So a successful life is to live a Krishna conscious life and to go back to Godhead. That's real success. Other people think, no. Real success is, make a lot of money and then buy big houses. Just like all these rich people, they buy these big houses. Like 12 bathrooms, 13 bedrooms, 2 swimming pools, not just one, 2 swimming pools. They have a jacuzzi, this thing, that thing. It's all full of, and many cars. Big landscaping. But when they die, they get, this little 6 feet of dirt. So what happened to that big house? What happened to the cars? What happened to all the money? It's all gone. What's happened to them? Yeah, they've taken birth as a cockroach somewhere. So you see, actually it's embarrassing to have these big houses and throw these big parties where there's complete sense gratification. Just like this guy Thiel, what's his name? The billionaire Thiel. You know who that is?
Peter Thiel.
Yeah, Peter Thiel. Right. So he's a homosexual, and he's married. He's the wife, and the other man he married is the man, right? And he's like the woman. And now, secretly, he fell in love with another man. So he bought that guy this gigantic house. It cost $13 million. He bought his secret so-called lover a $300,000 car, and a lot of vacations, and so he's married, but he has this other person in his life, right? So then, recently, there was he had a party and invited all his perverted friends from all over the world to come to the party. So people came from Europe and other places, right? And they were all, these perverts, and his secret boyfriend also came. So there was a big argument between his husband and the boyfriend, and then he was forced to no longer financially support the boyfriend. So what happened? The boyfriend committed suicide. It's all in the papers now. This shows how perverted and crazy these people are. See, and how there's no shame at all, no fidelity, no faithfulness, nothing. They're just sense gratification, uncontrolled sense gratification, and it's ruining people's lives. Of course, they would never accept that. And because he has so much money, he's able to control people with his money. But what did he do? He ruined somebody's life. And they don't apologize, nothing. So these are very greedy, selfish people. And people look up to them because, he has so much money. But that's not the criterion of a person. The criterion is how much they're surrendered to Krishna, how much they're engaged in service to the Lord, how much they're humble, how much they're a minimalist in their own lifestyle so they have time and energy to serve Krishna. These other people, all they think about is sense gratification and making money. That's it. So we're living in dangerous times where these false people are being glorified and the real people are being vilified. If you're a devotee, people think, you're a failure. You're missing all the good things in life. They make all these arguments, to convince you that you're wrong to be Krishna conscious. You're right if you think about making a lot of money and spending it for sense gratification. So this is what we're faced with. Now, unless we have enough knowledge of Krishna, we're going to be eventually convinced that, oh yeah, I don't want to waste my time being Krishna conscious. I want to make money. I want to become rich. I want to have big cars, big houses, and big stool. Yeah, they eat a lot. They pass a lot of stool. They can't even pass stool. They get constipated anyway. So, anyway, this is the problem of life today in this modern age. And unless we see through it, we're going to go along with it. Okay, so we'll stop right there. Thank you very much. Hare
Maharaj,
Krishna.
sorry, I have a quick question. So, the knowledge and surrender.
What?
We learn about the knowledge, and I have a question about knowledge and surrender. So,
Knowledge and
surrendering.
surrender.
Surrender.
Okay.
So, there's two things, right? So, I'm a little confused, like which precedes what. Like, based on the what purport right now we read about,
Yeah.
we have to have knowledge gradually, and then you will be in position to surrender. We take the example of Arjuna also. Krishna gives him knowledge to bring him to some, after chapter 1, 2, 3. I mean, he came to the stage where he got saying that, oh, I'm surrendering you. So it feels like you have to give knowledge, you have to have knowledge to come to that stage where you can surrender. But sometimes it's opposite, like you surrender and then you get real knowledge. The example I would like to give is like, let's say hippies.
What?
Example of hippie people, right?
Hippies.
So Prabhupada they surrender, and then they gradually they got like real knowledge about it.
They didn't surrender.
I mean,
They came, they had kirtan, they danced, they listened to Prabhupada's classes, they had some prasadam, then they surrendered. They didn't surrender first. They didn't want to surrender. It's only after becoming purified by hearing Prabhupada and chanting and dancing and having Rath Yatra festival and things like that, they started to surrender.
so knowledge always precedes surrendering process.
No, faith precedes knowledge. Like, you have faith that if you get on, Air India to Mumbai in Seattle, you're going to land in Mumbai legally, safely. But you don't know until you actually land. So you have faith. Now, if you don't have faith that that airplane's going to reach Mumbai safely, you would not get on it. So faith always precedes knowledge. Like, you put your money in the bank. You have faith that whenever you want to take it out, you're going to get it. If you think that you can never take it out, you would not put the money in the bank. Faith precedes knowledge.
Faith and knowledge is faith precedes. But right about surrendering and knowledge. So knowledge.
Well, to surrender, you have to have knowledge. Yeah. But if you approach Prabhupada, you have faith that he can give you knowledge. You don't know, but you see other people, they've accepted Prabhupada. So you have faith that if I surrender to Prabhupada, then I'll have knowledge. And Prabhupada's giving the real knowledge. So you have faith. Just like, your kid has faith that if they get into UW, then they'll be a success. That's not sure, but anyway. But they have faith in that. So if you say, well, no, don't go to college. Just come to the temple and learn to be a devotee. They'll say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to get into IT and make money. So then they want to go to the college. But other kids, they don't. They want to be brahmacharis the rest of their life. So they're completely satisfied having a Krishna conscious life, going out of Sankirtan, preaching, dancing, having festivals. And so some people decide, like Narada Muni, that they're not going to go to college and make money. They're going to always be a devotee. And look how successful Narada Muni became. Prahlad Maharaj, all these people, they became tremendously successful by just being Krishna conscious. More successful than the so-called successful people. Anyway, all these things, I mean, we're not against anyone going to college we're against people who become karmis by going to college. But if you go to get some knowledge to make an honest living, but your lifestyle is Krishna conscious, then there's nothing wrong. So all these things have to be explained. Haribol. So we'll start right there. Okay, where is he? He's not singing? Yeah. Yeah, when I joined Krishna consciousness, I had faith that by becoming Krishna conscious is more important than going to college and getting a PhD or a master's degree. And I think I made the right decision. Right. Go ahead.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Manamui Savadana Mate
Pandamui Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Boy E Bhavatoriya Jai
Janara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Ho Jai Ha Hoite
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Kya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Akya
Arana Koriya Mane Asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asa
Chakshudan Dilo Jai Janme Jan Prabhu Se
Chakshudan Dila Jai Janme Prabhu Se
Dirvika Rode Prakashita
Divya Jnani De Prakashito
Prema Bhakti Jaha Hote Avidya Vinasha Jate
Prema Bhakti Jaha Hote Avidya Vinasha Jate
Vedikai Jahara Charita
Vedika Chanara Charito
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu
Kena Lokera Jivana
Lokena Lokera Jivana
Kaha Prabhu koro doya deha more padachaya.
Aha Prabhu kora doya deha more padachaya.
Ebe guys go sukhi bhuvana.
Ebeyas Gusukhi Bhuvana.
Srila Prabhupada patita pavana.
Jaya Prabhupada Patita Pavana.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Bolo Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine.
Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pashatya Vishatarine.
Namaste Swati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda
Nityananda
Sri Advaita Garadhara Shivasarit Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Rama, Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama Hare Rama
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajak Jasta to the Sattva Shri Shri Maharaj's Divine Grace. Shri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to some of the. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lotus feet of our spiritual master, and the only way by which we can attain
pure
pure
devotional
devotional
service.
service.
I bow down to
his
his lotus feet
with
with
great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and attain mercy.
Yes,